Hello, Media Junkyard fans, and we're here live in...
Do I have any snot in my nose? Because I just blew my nose and I didn't quite...
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
No, you look great.
You're good?
You're good.
Good. Bats in the cave?
Media Junkyard is very pleased to have Mr. Scott Thompson here at Comic-Con 2010 with us. And along with Scott, we have Stefan Nielsen. Along with Scott, we have Stefan Nielsen. Stefan Nielsen.
I made a mistake the first time I met him. Oh!
I can definitely see that happening. I know.
He's a big man.
He is a very large man.
You're a big Swede, is what I say.
A Swede, no less. All right. And you guys are teaming up for a graphic novel that is based on one of your characters you've played for many years, who is Danny Husk.
Danny Husk. Yeah, Danny Husk is my businessman character, and it's basically this is a story of mine that has been in me for 10 years. I've been working on it. It used to be a screenplay, and then I realized one day that no one was ever going to make this $200 million picture starring a cult comedian from Canada. So I decided to start pitching it as a graphic novel because it's a big, epic fantasy. And then these guys said, yeah, let's do it. So for the last 14 months, we've been collaborating on this.
Stefan, what was it like when you were approached by Scott for something like this? Were you already aware of his work? Were you aware of the character, Danny Husk?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I watched Kids in the Hall from the very beginning. I've seen, Brain Candy. I've seen basically everything Scott's done. So when I got the opportunity, similar, I was kind of starstruck at first, and then got to know Scott and realized, hey, he's actually a real guy. He's a nice guy.
That's what was upsetting to me, because I wanted him to continue to be starstruck. Because after that, I was so down to earth. Then he started acting like I was a normal person, and I did not like that at all.
Once the beatings came in, then I got back into line.
Yes.
We were okay. But no, it was actually a real treat working with Scott because he had this idea, which had a lot of humor to it, but it was a very big story. But he let us do what we do as a comic book company to make his story into a comic book. It took a lot, it was a lot of back and forth, good working relationship on that. So it's been nothing but a dream.
How much input do you find yourself having in the graphic part of the graphic novel versus the story part of it? Is there like a kind of an equally shared potential?
Like the story part, the story part is mine. I wrote the screenplay. The screenplay I started working on 10 years ago. And, and then I tried to get it made, but, every studio would go, oh, it's the most original thing we've ever read, which means we'll never make your stupid script. But the graphic part I did not know because I'm not an artist, whatever. And I did think to myself at one point, like, maybe I should just turn this into a novel. And then I thought, that's a lot of work. Why don't I just get someone who can actually draw to turn it into a graphic novel? And that's when I decided to start pitching it to these guys. But the collaboration was fascinating because Kyle Morton, he did the drawings. And it was very interesting because I had the main characters. There's like about 14 main characters, and they had to look like sort of the way I envisioned them. And it went back and forth. I'm sorry for hitting you. They went back and forth. I'd send them pictures of famous people or people from the internet or friends of mine that I thought they would look like. And Kyle would do drawings, and then we'd go back and forth. And then when they were perfect, each one, then when we finally signed off on the 14, then we had to start telling the story. And then that's when Stefan came in terms of adapting it. So he would do it like 3 or 4 pages at a time of the screenplay. Then it would go back to me, and we'd talk about it, and there'd be changes. And it was all done online through Skype, really, which was amazing. In fact,
Skype, you can send the check to Scott Thompson.
Yeah. And it was cool because I'd met Stefan 2 years ago when he brought me here, and then I'd never met the other artists, Kyle Morton, who drew it, Ron Riley, who colored it, and Charles Pritchett, who did the lettering. I'd never met any of them until today. So it's very exciting and very weird. It's like you've been having sex with all these men, and
something you're not at all familiar with.
And I'm just saying, if any viewers out there are familiar with the concept of a glory hole, which I have read about, it's like having sex with all these guys on the other side of a wall, and then you go, what? That's the face? And sometimes it wasn't exactly the face that I thought would be attached to the... Can I say cock?
You can say cock as much as you want.
Sometimes it would be like, wow, who would have thought that face belonged to that cock? And other times I would go, that is the right face for that cock. And other times I would just go, I don't know, I can't really put it together, but God never makes mistakes.
This is true.
And then I had to and so now it's interesting because now I have to, sometimes it's kind of like, it's a really intimate kind of a experience creating, and then when you're doing it through the internet, there's a kind of as I said, a wall, a glory hole. And now there's kind of, I'm starting to get to know them as human beings, which I'm not so into. I'd rather they stayed on the other side of the wall. Yes.
Completely understandable. Would you say that before this process you were already a fan, a reader? I am Canadian. I just say process. That's the proof. If you've ever truly wondered if I actually am an official Canadian, Scott Thompson has officially...
Talk about the project.
The project. Absolutely. Or the route.
Or the route. Yeah. I'll meet you in the foyer.
The foyer. Absolutely.
Isn't that weird when they say foyer? I think, and I'm not saying Americans are not a stupid people, but when they say foyer, I think to myself, really? You can't even, I know you hate the French, but really? Do you hate them so much that you can't even pronounce the word?
I would prefer the freedom room.
I would too. Then when they say foyer, I go, what? Are we going to have some hors d'oeuvres? Like, come on, people. I'm just saying.
I know. That was your Media Junkyard Canadian moment. Would you say you were a fan of graphic novels before this process, or would you say that, or would you say that this entire endeavor brought you along a route to bring you closer to the graphic novel as a medium of choice and something that you would be willing to experience?
I would say the second one, and I'll admit it that I was actually a bit of a snob. Like I've been a literary snob my whole life. I'm a book guy. I like books. And I used to always think, oh, the graphic novel can't possibly, measure up to the book. But then I'd been reading the wrong graphic novels. And then once I started doing this project, I can say that with you, because I started to investigate them and went, wow, some of them are really good. They're not all stupid, and they're not all like just about busty babes and superheroes. And I started to really fall in love with the genre. Now I love it. So yeah, it's definitely brought me, and now I love this medium, and I want to continue to work in it.
Stefan, you mentioned earlier that you were already a fan of Scott's work. Were you at all tempted to give a lot of the creative process over to Scott, more so than maybe other projects that you would have been working on with someone less substantial?
Oh, I was going to say something else. Hung?
We could say hung. Do you want to edit that and say hung instead? With someone less hung?
Actually, there wasn't a problem. I mean, we went into the understanding that this is Scott's project. He was going to have final say, but he wasn't a hard ass about it. He was, very understanding and very open to hear what we had to say about, how this medium works, because he was very unfamiliar with it at the start. So, I mean, it was literally weekly meetings. We'd go over just small chunks at a time to, get to his understanding. And, within a couple months, we were up and running and flying. And it was a great, like I said before, a great working relationship, because I could actually tell him what I thought. I wasn't like I was working for George Lucas and I had to go, yes, Mr. Lucas, yes, Mr. Lucas. I was like, hey, Scott.
I have a chin. That's all I'm going to say. That's the only difference.
So, we were able to give him our input, and he took it serious. And sometimes our way was the right way, sometimes his way was the right way. But that's was again the reason we're going to continue working together. I think is.
When can we get our hands on Danny Husk in the Hollow Planet?
November.
1st of November.
November 1st it'll be out, and that's it.
Is it going to be an integral piece? We can pick up the whole thing, or is it going to come out book by book?
It's a complete graphic novel. Now it's a self-contained story, but there are going to be 3 graphic novels to this story, and it's going to be published from IDW Publishing, and anybody can order it through Diamond or local comic book stores starting August.
Except for the Jews, they can't order it online. No.
Quite understandable.
I'm just working the Mel Gibson zeitgeist.
Well, you know, I'm not going to stop you, just to let you know.
I do. I ride the zeitgeist. So that's what I do.
You're a meme setter.
I am. Yeah.